and on cue that message has come up. I did want to point out that, as the message said, that we are recording this event because what we would ideally want to do is to be able to post this on our borough website so that people who can't make it, we know a lot of people that can't for various reasons, can then go to it, and you can refer it to friends for others to watch. So really want to thank everybody for joining today. If we can go to the next slide, please. I know everyone's taken this is a work day, and everyone's found a little bit of time to, thank you. Yeah, perfect. Then we can go to the next slide. Yep, and the one after that. So yeah, perfect. So thank you. So no, the one back. Okay, so I want to tell, if you can go one slide back to the mission. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Pennington Environmental Commission. So at our core, we are really a advisory body. We are obviously not a group that makes any policies or decisions or enforce any policies or anything like this. The way that we see ourselves is that we really are like a conduit between the borough and the community, and the other way around as well, between the community and the borough when it comes to environmental things. And it's something that, you know, when we look, and we've just gone through an exercise as a commission around thinking about our 2025 priorities. So I can share a little bit about, in some large buckets, at a high level, some of the things that we do, just to give you a bit of a flavor of what it is that we do. So part of it is around community engagement and education. And this event, like what we're doing today, is an example of that, you know, organizing efforts to promote awareness and action on key environmental issues. Another aspect is around sustainability and climate-driven initiatives, and these are usually strategic projects that will take a number of years to be able to execute, but it's really working with our borough administration and our community together to look at strategies and things that will help us reduce our environmental impact and our resilience as a community environmentally, and also support, you know, local sustainability goals that we have, very much aligned to the master plan that is being developed now, and something that we've had some input around. A third area that we focus on the commission is really around conservation, environmental conservation issues. And this really is looking at how we can conserve, support, preserve our green spaces, our open spaces in our community. And there are a variety of different things that the projects that we are beginning to work on. For example, our new arboretum that's being developed at the moment. You know, we're working with the youth in our community to make that an engaging and interactive experience with QR codes and some exciting things that are happening. So that's another area that we try to get involved with. A fourth area is around site and planning and development. And I know ours is a small community. There isn't a ton of development that happens, but there are things that develop within Pennington from time to time. And we are looking to build our capabilities around how we can provide some input as those decisions and as those things are being reviewed. And that's something that we're working on. And finally, I would say the other sort of broad area that we work on is around collaboration with other committees and commissions. And so it's about finding those things where we have shared priorities, shared goals when it comes to the environment, and then trying to do that. So we're building all of that into the way that we look at things, and I thought that would be helpful. If you can move to the next slide, I wanted to just share with you who is in the Environmental Commission. So we put together a slide that just outlines and shows a picture of everybody. If you can move forwards to the pictures. No, a bit of a lag. So I'm going to carry on talking. So we have a really great team, and there are 10 of us. We are all volunteers. So we're all residents of Pennington. I live on South Main Street. We all live here in Pennington. We represent a cross-section of the community. Some of us are environmental professionals in our day jobs. while others like me are not. But we all share a commitment, and we share a passion, and we share a desire to do what we can in the community, and to share our passion around the environment. And so this is what really unites us. And I want to just call out the team. If we can move to the next slide, I wanted to also talk a little bit about community and the power of community, because ours, I think, is, Pennington's a small town, relatively speaking, a small municipality compared to some of the other municipalities in New Jersey. But I honestly think that our strength is really in our connectivity and our collaboration that we can have as a small community to get things done. There are small actions that we can do that together make a big impact. And that's really what we want to try to foster, and some of the things that we want to try to do along with you. And it isn't just about looking at policies and regulations and laws and things that are driven from the top, from federal to state to municipal, down to then to the community. That's not what it's really about. To me, it's also about grassroots efforts. It's about local effort. It's about education. It's about awareness. It's about volunteering. It's about community participation. And these are all things that I think can be very powerful on its own and can help move the needle just as much as any regulation or law. And so that's really the sort of philosophy behind what we're trying to do here through these community conversations, is really to raise the awareness and raise the education and raise the dialogue and conversation about certain key things. And today we're talking about recycling, and I'm going to ask Jim in a few minutes just to say why we chose that, and what are some of the other things that we want to try to share as we go through the year. But this comes from you. You had given us, we had done a survey at the end of last year where we asked what were the key things that resonated with people in terms of importance when it comes to the environment in Pennington, and this was one of the top ones. And so we've chosen this as being the topic, and I hope that you will walk away at the end of today's discussion and presentation with some takeaways. So if you can move to the next slide, this is where we'll talk about what we'll cover today. So I'm going to transition to Jim on the agenda in a few minutes, and he will talk about the survey that we did. And then we'll move to our speakers, and I'll introduce them formally in a second, but Joanne will talk about the myths and the facts, the do's and the don'ts, the best practices around recycling and recycling in Pennington. And then we've invited Michelle, and we're really happy that Michelle from a company called TerraCycle, which is a global company, but has a local presence in Hopewell Valley, to talk to us a little bit about some new and different ideas that they have, and she's going to share around recycling beyond what we put in our bins that we have. And so she's going to talk a little bit about that from her perspective. Finally, we'll open this up and let's have a discussion. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, observations, we'd love to hear that, and then I'll close the meeting. So we're going to hopefully try to wrap up by 8:15 at the very latest, but we might finish earlier. So let me go ahead and introduce our speakers, if you could move to the next slide. So Joanne, some of us may know Joanne. Joanne Held, she is a member of our Pennington Environmental Commission, and she's also chair of the Hopewell Valley Green Team and Pennington Farmers Market Board of Trustees. Now, Joanne's lived for a long time in Pennington, 45 years, and before retiring, Joanne used to work for the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection in the area of air quality. So she knows what she's talking about here. And Michelle, we're really happy that she's joined us. Michelle also is a lifelong Hopewell Valley resident with a background in sustainability and textile design. After getting her MBA, she joined TerraCycle's strategy team, where she helps deliver and drive global solutions for waste management and circularity. And outside of work, Michelle combines her love for sustainability and textiles through a small business she has called the Mending Fairy. So I hope you'll check that out. And for the past couple of years, Michelle has served on the Hopewell Harvest Fair Planning Committee, helping bring the community together around sustainable practices and events. So we're really fortunate to have two experts with us in our community to help share their perspectives and to hopefully impart some knowledge to all of us. if we could move to the next slide, please. There are a couple of housekeeping things, and then I'm going to transition to Jim. As you know, this is being recorded, and so we should be on our best behavior. And then we will also have the Q&A that I mentioned. This really is around encouraging questions. So as you go through, as you listen to interesting things today, please jot down your questions, and we will open it up, and I'll explain that, how we'll do that later as we get through the next hour, how we'll do that. But you feel free to ask questions, and let's engage in dialogue around that. Just on muting and that sort of thing, as usual, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Zoom. I think we have the ability to mute everybody, but just out of good practice, if you could also click on your mute button, that would be awesome, and then you can open that up. So with that, I will transition to Jim, and then I'll come back towards the end of the meeting to close the meeting. Jim?
Thank you, Kieran, and good evening, everyone. Could you move to the next slide, please? So as Kieran mentioned, among our commission's obligations is engaging with borough residents and keeping you all informed on environmental news, trends, issues, and perhaps most importantly, ways that you all can help make Pennington and Hopewell Valley a greener and more sustainable place to live. So as we thought about how we were going to fulfill that obligation, we decided to host a series of community conversations, with this being the first one. And so in order to address what topics are foremost on your minds, we conducted a survey last fall that we thought would help guide us on the priorities for these conversations. As you can see, we got a tremendous response to the survey, with over 200 residents responding. So a great big thanks to all of you that participated. While there was interest in all 7 of the topics, recycling and greenscaping ended up in a tie for first place. So we're starting with recycling tonight and plan on hosting a conversation on greenscaping in the fall, with conversations on all of the rest of the topics to follow in the order of your indicated priorities over the course of this year and next. We trust you will look forward to attending all of these as much as we're looking forward to hosting them. I think you're going to find tonight's conversation interesting and informative. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sustainable Jersey's Sustainable Hero for November 2024, Pennington's own, the remarkable Joanne Held. Joanne?
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Kieran. Next slide, please. I'm really happy to be here tonight talking about my favorite subject, which is recycling. And I'm hoping that I will stay somewhere within the time limit they gave me. So for those of you who might not be familiar, the Hopewell Valley Green Team was established about 15 years ago as part of the recommendation of Sustainable Jersey, an organization that is helping municipalities to be more sustainable. In our case, we decided to have a green team that had members of both of our boroughs and the township so that we could all work together. Our charge is to advise our municipal governments, to educate our residents, and also to reach out to our businesses to help everybody to be more sustainable. You can see our motto is working together to live smarter and grow greener. We have a website that you might find very helpful. It's just at hopewellvalleygreenteam.org. I'll be referring to it many times tonight. On the website, we try to put things that we think will be useful to our residents and their efforts to be more sustainable. We have a group of about 8 or 10 people who are constantly learning and looking at the web and finding new resources. When we find one that we all agree is good, we put it there, and that saves you some of the trouble of having to search for information. So we hope that you'll go to the hopewellvalleygreenteam.org after tonight and many, many times after that to find useful information. And if you can't find it there, you can send us an email. Our email address is on there as well, and tell us what you're interested in, and we'll work on it. As it turns out, our green team is really good at recycling. And I'm going to talk about a lot of the things we've learned over the last 15 years about recycling. But before that, next slide, please. I just want to take a minute to talk about reduce, reuse. Recycling is great. It's better than throwing something in the garbage. But those chasing arrows that you see might give you a warm feeling, but if all you think about is the recycle part, you're missing an important part of the sustainability conversation. Reducing, reusing are even more important steps to take if you're trying to live sustainably. Next slide. So, for example, you might try to reduce the plastic in your life. A lot of us have already taken the step to go to reusable water bottles. Well, what if you also went to a metal water bottle? Metal is infinitely recyclable and when you finally get to the point where you have to put it in the recycle bin, but you'd have a lot less plastic in your life if you try metal water bottles. And actually, I think the water tastes better out of metal. You also might look for other alternatives to plastic. For example, my family drinks a lot of seltzer in V8, and I was in the store a few years ago and saw, I can get this in a metal can. I don't need to buy the plastic bottle. That's wonderful, and that's what we are doing now on a regular basis. And I'm going to be throwing out lots and lots of ideas. Try not to do them all at once. I think people would just get overwhelmed and you maybe stop, but try and find a few things that you can do, make them a habit, and then go on to the next thing. Next slide, please. So reduce, reuse calls for a new way of thinking. For example, think before you buy. Do I really need this? How many pairs of jeans do I really need? Borrow if you won't use something often. Repair something instead of replacing it. Give gifts that can be used up or experienced. I like to give food as gifts. Donate instead of throwing away. Take it to Goodwill if it's still usable. Don't put it in the garbage. Give it another chance, or try the Buy Nothing Help Well or one of the other online ways to avoid throwing away or recycling. Next slide, please. So that was my little soapbox about reduce, reuse. I'm going to spend some time now talking about our curbside recycling program. Now, most of you, I assume, are quite familiar with the program, but I'm going to go through a lot of detail for anybody who happens to be really new to the area. And I think you'll find that there's always one or two new things that you didn't know about. Our curbside recycling is when you put out your yellow and or green bins on Tuesdays. It's led by Mercer County. They actually do the collection for 10 out of the 12 municipalities in the county. And they have the lead, but the municipalities are partners. And if you have a broken bin and you need a new one, you should contact your local public works department and they can help you to get a replacement. Next slide. So what goes in your bin? Well, first, we have a nice graphic that we've gotten recently from Mercer County on the right here, but I want to emphasize your items should be clean. Later on, I'm going to show you some pictures of what happens at a recycling center. You don't want a lot of food stuff going in through you, so clean it, please. Clean and as dry as it can be. Number 5 plastic is now accepted. And if you're thinking, I didn't know that. Well, you're not that far behind. This just started in January, but it's the basic, it's the paper, books are okay as long as if it's a hardcover, take the hardcover off, put that in your garbage. Cardboard, metal cans, beverage cartons like milk cartons, glass bottles, beverage bottles, all the plastic and milk jugs, and then now 1, 2, and 5 plastics. They're all can go into your bin. Next slide. Okay, so about oh, yeah, here we go. So a little bit more about the number 5s. If you have not been paying attention to what the number 5 plastics are, yogurt containers are almost all number 5, although there are a couple brands that come in glass, if you want to look into that. Those amber medicine bottles that you get from the pharmacy, those are number 5s. Beverage caps are now allowed, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. They list to-go containers on here, and it's true. Some to-go containers are number 5, some are maybe 1s, but you have to check first before you put that in your bin. Next slide. So you're going to be looking at the bottom of all your containers to figure out what they are, and you'll find these little recycling signs with a number in it and some letters. sometimes it's just hard to find the sign, the symbol at all. Once you find it, you might have trouble telling, is this a 1 or a 2? Is it a 5 or a 6? I can't tell. Well, here's a tip, pro tip. Sometimes you can make out the letters and not the numbers. A 5 is PP, polypropylene. 6 is polystyrene. So if you can make out the letters, you can tell if it's PP or PS. PP can go into the bin. PS, polystyrene, not. PET or PETE is a number 1 plastic. The other way I can tell if it's a number 1 plastic, one problem with number 1 plastic is it does not stand up to heat very well. So sometimes I'll run it through the dishwasher, and if it comes out flat, then I'll know that it was a number 1. So next slide, please. Okay, these are things that do not go in your bin, and there's very good reasons why they should not be in your bin. Number 1, you've probably heard this many times, and I think you're probably all good practitioners on this. No plastic bags. No plastic bags. We'll say it over and over. You'll hear it again later. No plastic bags. No pizza boxes. And pizza boxes, they're cardboard, but they have oil on them, and you can't get the oil out of the cardboard, and that means that whatever you make the next thing out of is going to have oil, make it into is going to have oil. I've heard people say, but it was actually a clean pizza box. Well, if you'll see later pictures of people at the recycling centers trying to sort through things. If they see a pizza box, they're not going to take time to inspect it and see if it's clean. They're going to have to just throw it out. Styrofoam does not go in your recycle bin. Styrofoam is the number 6 plastic, and we have had separate collections for styrofoam, and we have on our website tips on where to take your own styrofoam, but don't put it in your recycle bin. Light bulbs don't go in the recycle bin. It's not the right kind of glass. And also, I should mention, if you have one of the old CFL light bulbs, the compact fluorescents, when you're ready to throw it away, put it in a Ziploc bag so that if it breaks, the mercury doesn't escape and hurt anybody, and then take it to your household hazardous waste collection at Mercer County, which I'll talk about later. Then there's food products, paper cups. You say, well, it's paper, but it's got wax on it, and it also mostly, and also it's got food contamination on it. Food contaminated paper, it should not go in the bin. Same for plastic cutlery. I don't even know what number those are, and they just don't go in the bins. So those things you do not put into the bins. Also, I forgot to put this on here, but it came up recently because there's a fire. No batteries, especially no lithium ion batteries. They are an incredible fire hazard, and we don't want those in the bin, in the truck, any place where they can cause harm. Next slide, please. So lids. So the latest guidance from Mercer County is that it's okay to put bottle caps, the plastic bottle caps, into your bin. And we call to ask, so do you want them on the bottles or off the bottles? And their guidance now is off the bottles. So you can put all your little caps in, and somehow they can manage it at the recycling center. For cans like soup cans, tuna cans, those can lids can go into the recycle bin. They're metal, just plain metal, and clean them up first and throw them in your bin. Now, if you've got something more like a mason jar, then the outer ring is just metal, and you can put that in your recycle bin. But the topper is a combination of metal and some plastic, and so that shouldn't go in your bin. The good news is that we, as a Hopewell Valley Green team, working with the Hopewell Township, have started to do annual scrap metal collections, and those toppers could go into the scrap metal collection. So save them. They don't take up much room, and save them till the next collection. Same for bottle caps, the metal bottle caps. Save those for the next metal collection. I'm not sure that the Mercer County people are ready to handle bottle caps. So that's lids. Next slide. So I've been talking about what goes in your bin, and I want to give you a sense of why some of this stuff should not go in your bin. We were going to show this video from the Burlington County Recycling Center, which is probably is very similar to the recycling center or materials recycling facility, also known as a MRF, where our stuff goes. The video didn't work too well with Zoom. On this slide, which you can see if you want to take a picture, the link, but also there is a link to this video on the Hopo Valley Green Team recycling page. If you go to our webpage, go to the curbside recycling, scroll down about 2/3 of the way, you'll find the link to this video and you can watch the whole thing at home. But I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots from the video. Next slide, please. Oops, back up one. So on the side of the Burlington County trucks, it says, do not bag your recyclables. Do not bag. You're going to hear this over and over again. When you, in the next slide, please, when you see the first step is the stuff going down the conveyor belt and some people there sorting out the trash. Now, if you have a bag full of plastic bottles, they don't have time to open up the bag and see what's in it and sort it out. It's just going to go right into their trash bin, unfortunately. So don't bag your recyclables. Don't put them in plastic bags. And and also they also pre-sort some trash at this point. Next slide, please. So here's some examples of some of the trash that can be found. You'll see a lot of these things actually are metal and can go to the scrap metal collection if you'll save them up, but these can damage the machinery and actually they've also found stuff in there that can hurt the workers. So please be careful. Please stick to what is allowed to go into the bin. Next slide. So after the first sort, the materials go through a whole series of conveyors and spinners and discs and things air blowing and all kinds of things. Here's, for example, is our spinning discs that are used to just separate out the large cardboard. So the big cardboard gets sorted out at this stage. And the next step, next slide, please. So you hear at the next slide, you'll see there's here's what's left on the conveyor and the workers there sorting again, finding small cardboard and putting that aside, and also finding more trash. The trash just continually reveals itself throughout the process. Next slide. Another step they use is they have these wheels that are sort of screening discs, they call them. And when the material comes down here, if it's glass, it breaks and the pieces of glass fall through the holes and go into the next conveyor. So things like a series of this are part of the recycling process. And the next slide, please. Here's another, this is like a big barrel that's rotating and some of the smaller stuff it stays at the top and gets sorted out, and the bigger stuff goes down into a place where it can then get sorted into its correct bin. And I have the next one. This next slide. This is why you don't want to put plastic bags in. Also, just loose plastic bags. At least once a day, I understand they have to stop all the machinery and go in and clean out the plastic bags. Here's, a worker removing plastic bags by hand from the machinery. I've heard it's much better now that we have the bag ban because people don't have as many plastic bags to throw in, but this is what happens to them. Next slide, please. And here we go. Here's workers again doing another sort. And at this point, they're finding the crushed bottles and cans and pulling them out. They don't get recognized by the machinery. So don't crush your plastic bottles, don't crush your cans. The machinery doesn't recognize them. And so that's a really important step too. Knowing what happens at the facility makes it so much easier to remember the rules. And finally, one last slide. And this is not a very active slide, but you can see here, this material is about to go into a bin where a magnet will pull out the metal stuff. So they're using magnets. They use air to sort the plastic bottles. They've used lots of different technology so that they can sort, tons and tons of this material every day. So that's what happens at the recycling facility. I want to move on next to what we're calling beyond the basics. So next slide. Recycling things that don't go into your curbside bin, but you can still find ways to recycle them. Again, at our website, you'll see lots of information. This QR code, though, if you want to take a picture, will take you right straight to the page where we have a long list of ways that you can recycle things other than in your bin. Also, it includes a number of ways to reuse, direct material to a place where it will be reused. And we try and focus on things that are super local and free to direct your waste to. And another reminder, I'm now going to suggest about 20 different things you can do. Pace yourself or use this as a reference. When you have the thing in your hand and wonder what to do with it, then go to this page and figure it out. That's usually the best time. It's the best, easiest way to learn. Next slide. So even though we don't have a lot of regular plastic, those grocery store plastic bags anymore, which most of you were probably not taking anyway. I bet that most of you were doing reusable bags anyway. But there's a company called Trex that can take plastic bags and turn them into something that is long lasting, benches and patio furniture, patio decking. They take, and you can see in this graphic, produce bags, they take ice bags, Ziploc bags, and other reusable bags. Just make sure they're clean. For some reason, they're able to take cereal box liners, over wrap on cases, bread bags, newspaper bags, dry cleaning bags, bubble wrap, and plastic e-commerce mailers. All those things which we still end up getting, even though we're trying hard not to have them. And Hopelboro is a project of collecting them. So if you went to the Hopelboro Hall and walked inside, you would find at least 4 giant bins waiting to collect your plastic bags. This is a collection from about maybe a week and a half or something. They're collecting a lot of plastic. If you have plastic film and that meets these criteria, you can take it to Hopelboro. And anytime the building's open, you can get it in there. I'll mention later that another place where you can take it in the summertime. Next slide. Scrap metal. I've mentioned scrap metal a couple of times, and we just had our second, hopefully annual scrap metal collection on February 8th. Scrap metal comes in lots of different forms. The rule of thumb is if it's at least 60% metal, we can take it. Nothing with wood though, because that's a fire hazard, and any other hazardous kinds of things like batteries or propane tanks. They even take, at the place that we then take it to, they even take things like holiday lights and electrical cords, because there's enough metal in there to make it worthwhile for them to extract it. We collected, in our first year of a collection, we collected 7 tons of material in 3 hours. I haven't got the data yet on this past one, but I think it was probably about the same amount. So put aside your metal and save it up, and come next year, probably in February, we'll be doing this again. Watch our website for more information. Also, our Facebook page has information. Next slide. Okay, at the Pennington Farmers Market, some of you may be familiar with the Pennington Farmers Market. It's up in front of Rosedale, it's not Rosedale Mills anymore, Holman, something, I'm sorry, Rosedale, I apologize. It's in front of them on Saturday mornings from late May until the middle or late November. And our green team goes there on the last Saturday of the month, starting in June, and collects some of these materials so that you don't have to be driving all over the countryside to deliver them. We'll take your plastic bags and film that you would normally take to Hopelboro, and we'll get them to Hopelboro for you. We're collecting reusable art supplies. Like if you bought a bottle of paint because you really wanted that special blue, but you don't need it anymore, it's so good. We're taking those to Homefront for their art program that they have. We collect button cell batteries. They're the little round ones. Put a little piece of tape over the positive end. If you can't tell which is which, put it on both ends. We'll collect those and we'll take them to the Household Hazardous Waste Day. There's no point in each of us driving there on our own for our button cell batteries. We're collecting cell phones and other electronics that we send to a company that will reuse it if it's still usable by cleaning it first. They give a lot of them to women's shelters, and they extract parts if they can, otherwise just they recycle. We're collecting Brita filters, and that's part of a TerraCycle campaign, and Michelle will tell you more about TerraCycle later, but Brita filters and single-use razors are both through TerraCycle. We ship them off to them. Wine bottle corks, real, not synthetic. We ship those off too with some help from the farmers market to pay for our shipping. And those get turned into something new. And used tennis balls and baseballs. We've done that for a few years, and one of our friends of the green team puts them on her porch and tells people, take any balls you want, and they disappear within hours. So it's the last Saturday of the month, June through October at the farmers market. Next slide. Their Staples has recently stepped up to collect and recycle a really long list of materials. And you can see, you can get to their list either from the Staples website or from our website. They're taking batteries, not any kind of battery, and any kind of the small battery, personal batteries, not car batteries. They do cartridges, printer cartridges, school supplies that are used up, and they take old CDs and DVDs, which is, I know a lot of people are trying to get rid of them when they're cleaning up. Also, some of these things are also collected by Best Buy, Home Depot, and Lowe's. So if you're in one of those stores, take a look near their entrance and see what it is they collect, so you can just drop it off. Next slide. Fabric. We get a lot of questions about fabric, especially if you've got some clothing that's still really good, you should probably take it to a local outlet that can make sure it gets reused right away. If you've got clothing that is damaged, or you've got sheets that are stained, or socks with holes in them, there are now some places that will take them. So here's two examples. The first one, actually, the top example, probably only takes the good stuff. I've seen this bin at Hopewell Elementary School. I believe the same bin is out behind the high school. And so you can take clothing and shoes and things like that there. But there's also around town, there's bins for this company called Helpsy. And on their label, they'll only say, give us your nice clothes and stuff, but they will take things like torn sheets and socks with holes in them and old rags, and they'll turn them, that stuff that can't be reused will be turned into things like rags and rope, so that it still gets used. There's also, coming soon, there'll be another drop-off spot at the new thrift store in Tree Farm Village that will also take some of these things that are somewhat damaged. So those are lots of different places where you can take specific items. I want to talk about two more programs. The next slide, please. Electronic waste and household hazardous waste. The county runs accepts household hazardous waste and electronic waste at 3 collection times during the year. It's at the Dempster Fire Training School in Lawrence Township. It runs from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. I recommend not going at 8 a.m. because everybody wants to be there at 8 a.m. and you end up sitting in a really long line. Go a little bit later and save yourself some gas or charge on your battery. Household hazardous waste are things like aerosol cans, motor oil, pesticides, batteries, antifreeze, anything with mercury in it, fluorescent and CFL bulbs, all those things are household hazardous waste. And they can take those for you on those 3 collection days during the year. And it runs really smoothly. You have to show your ID to show you live in Mercer County, and it runs really, really smoothly. At the same event, they also will accept electronic waste, computers, printers, copiers, fax machines, stereos, televisions, microwaves. Those are the examples of things that they'll take. I think they take more than that, but that's all they list on their flyers. So those, what if you're like us on the green team, we call each other just before one of the collections and say, "Are you going on Saturday? Can you take my stuff for me?" There's no point in all of us driving over there either. So that's the household hazardous waste and e-waste. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we also have a local electronic waste collection. It's at the Hopewell Township Public Works Building. It's open to all Hopewell Valley residents. Both the boroughs support our partners in this collection. Their list of accepted electronics is much longer. They're closer. They usually have a shredding day at the same time. Camera equipment, circuit boards, laptops, VCRs, if you still have one, all those sort of things are collected at the household, at the electronic waste collection. There are 2 of those, one in April and one in October. If you go to our website, as I've mentioned a few times, you will see you can find these dates under events. We have a page called events, and all these things are listed there. So if you want to figure out the next event, that's a way to find out. We'll also advertise it on our Facebook page, so follow us on Facebook, and you'll get information that way as well. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. I've described to you a whole lot of ways to manage your waste. Michelle now is going to there's a whole lot more materials you can take recycle through TerraCycle, and that's Michelle's job to describe them to you. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions at the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Thank you, GP. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Patnick, and I work at TerraCycle. So I first wanted to start with a little bit of background on TerraCycle. A fun fact, the founder and CEO, Tom Zaki, is actually a Hopewell Township resident. I'm sorry he couldn't be here with us today, but he knows I'm here. He and his family were actually on the cover of the Hopewell Valley Neighbors January edition, so you can read more about them there. TerraCycle has been around for a little over 20 years, and we currently operate in 20 countries, and our global headquarters are located in Trenton, New Jersey. That's where I go to work. And our mission is to eliminate the idea of waste, and we provide recycling solutions for the items that are not curbside recyclable. Next slide, please. So examples of those items would be toothbrushes, razors, disposable gloves, cosmetic packaging, the list goes on, and you know it. TerraCycle has researched and developed and patented many recycling processes for these types of products. Cigarette butts, chewing gum, very surprising things, shoes, and they can confidently guarantee that they'll recycle all of their accepted waste streams. And I included some photos here just of the process, and so you can kind of see what some of the processed waste looks like. It's kind of like these little pellets, and it just kind of depends on what the materials were being recycled. Next slide, please. And the waste gets processed into those raw materials, and they're typically used for industrial or outdoor uses. So the raw materials are turned into things like park benches and pallets and tubing, nuts and bolts, that sort of thing. And then TerraCycle also sells some products on their website that are made from the materials that they collect and recycle. For example, watering cans, outdoor planters, and frisbees are available. Next slide, please. So we work with many companies to collect and recycle or upcycle the waste. For example, this is more local to us, an upcycled sculpture at Subaru Park in Philadelphia, which is made from waste collected at the soccer stadium. Next slide, please. And then another example, this is a sculpture that was commissioned by Netflix to promote the Our Oceans documentary series that recently launched. And the sculpture is made from ocean plastic. There's actually a video that was shared on TerraCycle's social media pages in collaboration with Netflix with footage from the making of the sculpture. So if you're looking up TerraCycle after this call, keep an eye open for it. It's pretty cool to watch. Next slide, please. So at TerraCycle, we like to first address with our clients why everything isn't curbside recyclable. And to put it simply, recycling companies are businesses and they need to make money. So it's like urban mining. They pick up what has the most value and what will be easy to sell again with the least amount of hassle. So I put up an equation to provide what I hope is an easy visual, that there's a cost to collect the waste, to sort the waste, and then process the waste into the raw materials. And all those costs need to be less than the value of the recycled materials after they've been through processing so that the companies can profit. Next slide, please. So when you look at the accepted waste streams for the Mercer County recycling program, these items on the left are what our recycling company is able to make a profit on. We have the number 1, 2, 5 plastics, aluminum, glass, and cardboard. Next slide, please. So everything else, TerraCycle is able to recycle. Next slide, please. Now I want to go through the different ways that you can recycle with TerraCycle. We have paid recycling solutions and free ones, and I actually think the free solutions are more interesting, so I'm going to try to go through the paid ones quickly. For each of the paid solution, the cost truly covers the cost to recycle that selected waste, so you'll notice that the prices vary depending on the waste stream. The zero waste box is our largest format recycling solution, so if you need to recycle a lot, this is for you. Next slide, please. Here are some examples of the different types of zero waste boxes, but there are a ton of different options. These are also great for offices or classrooms. You can stick them right next to your normal trash and recycling bins. Next slide, please. At the 2024 Hopewell Harvest Fair, TerraCycle was an in-kind sponsor and donated zero waste boxes for us to use at the fair. So we were able to have highly effective waste stations with curbside recycling, TerraCycle recycling, composting, and then also trash cans as a last resort. They're great for events. At the end of the event, you can just close up the box and then you can ship it to the processor. Next slide, please. So for smaller quantities of waste, there are zero waste pouches, which work just like the zero waste boxes. You're just recycling small quantities at a time and mailing them to the processor. Next slide, please. And then we have zero waste bags, which are actually exclusively offered through local composters in select regions. So Unwaste is the composter service in our region. And it was previously through One Compost Can, if you might be familiar with that program. To sign up for the service, you just go to Unwaste's website, which is not unwaste.com, it's unwastemovement.world. So maybe just do a Google search if you can't remember that. But you can go to the website and you can sign up. And next slide, please. To participate, you'd purchase this bag from Unwaste, and then you can collect any one of the waste streams that are listed on the bag. So there's one for styrofoam, shoes, office supplies, party supplies. So you would collect that specific waste stream in the bag and check it off, and then you can schedule a pickup with Unwaste for the bag whenever you're ready. Next slide, please. So now we can move on to the free recycling options. I encourage everyone to just explore our website, terracycle.com, to get a feel for what's there. Just go to the recycle at the top and then all free recycling programs to see everything. You can also use the search bar and type in generic categories like shampoo or food if you're looking for something more specific. But I really encourage you to like click on everything because it can be a little confusing what different programs accept. And I'll give you an example. Next slide, please. So TerraCycle is able to offer programs free to you because they partner with big brands who will pay for your recycling. So in this example, it's highly specific. This home healthcare program covers only the brands that are shown and no other home healthcare brands. It's sponsored by Opella, which is the organization that owns all these brands. It was previously Sanofi, and they recently changed their name, if you're familiar with the organization. But so they're paying for the packaging of all their products to be recycled. And so it's accessible to you now for free. Next slide, please. Another example is this new Huggies recycling program where you can recycle the flexible plastic wrap on select brands of personal hygiene products. So Kimberly-Clark is the company that's sponsoring this program. They own the brands Huggies, Kotex, Depends, Scott, Cottonelle, etc. So they're paying for the cost of their own waste to be recycled, and allow it to be accessible to you for free. Next slide, please. So there are also programs that are a little less specific that accept all brands of a product category, like Joanne mentioned razors. There's a program that collects all razors that's sponsored by Gillette. So this is a great example. I really love this program because we're all using razors. Next slide, please. There's also a free cigarette waste recycling program for any brand of tobacco products. And to make it easy, TerraCycle actually sells cigarette butt receptacles that can be placed throughout towns or outside office buildings for the waste to be collected and then mailed in for recycling. Next slide, please. So to see the most up-to-date list of programs that accept all brands, you can search the words all brands in the search bar on our website. But I listed some examples here. Like there are some interesting ones like hair tools, like your hair dryer. If you have an old one you want to get rid of, you can send that in, any brand. Sauce packets, Taco Bell sponsors that. Socks, Gold Toe sponsors that one. So you can send in any brand of sock. Squeezable snack pouches like the Go-Go Squeeze snacks for your kids. Baby kids clothing is sponsored by Carter's, Febreze air fresheners. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. So again, please go and explore. Next slide, please. So here are some cool objects that TerraCycle has made with the recycled waste that they collect. This picnic table was actually made from sauce packets collected by the Taco Bell recycling program, which is pretty crazy how many sauce packets are in one picnic table. I'm not sure, but maybe I'll try to find out and share it in the next gathering. But you can find this picnic bench at the Trenton Thunder Ballpark. It was donated by Taco Bell, and they actually donated a few other ones to Mercer County. Next slide, please. And then, like, this is another example. The Paris Olympic podiums were actually made from recycled TerraCycle waste that was collected from Procter & Gamble recycling programs in France. And we also did this same program for the Tokyo Olympic podiums, which was a pretty cool global project to be working on. Next slide, please. So how do you recycle for free? It's actually pretty simple. You make a TerraCycle account, you sign up for the program that you have the waste for, you download a shipping label from our website, and you ship the waste to us. And one of my favorite parts, we also have a rewards program where you can earn $1 per pound of waste that you collect, and then you can donate it to a nonprofit organization of your choice. Next slide, please. So not all the programs participate in the rewards program, but the ones that do show this visual on their product page. So if you want to search for programs that are participating in this program, I think searching the word school on our website will actually come up and bring up all the participating programs. The reason for that is that you can actually register your school as a nonprofit and you can raise money for your school using these programs. And that's something that's very popular. It's also popular for like Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops. So that's another option if you're involved with any of those types of organizations. Next slide, please. So just an example, just so you have a visual of some of the programs that are participating in these rewards. We have Herbal Essences and Burt's Bees and Dermalogica and EOS, like very common brands. I'm sure you're using at least a couple of the ones that are participating. Next slide, please. In food, we have Baby Bell wrappers and Bimbo Bakery's bread bags, Taki snack wrappers, and Entenmann's. Next slide, please. Swiffer, that's a great one. Swiffer, they're so great. They grab all the dust, but then at the end of the day, they're like gross and disgusting and you want to throw them out, but you can actually recycle them and get rewarded. Hasbro Toys is another interesting one. Newell Brands has these, actually is the brand that owns Yankee Candles. So if you have an expired Yankee candle, you can actually recycle it, which is pretty awesome, and get rewards. And candles have like a lot of weight to them, so you're getting more rewards points, which is great. Next slide, please. So if you're participating in these programs and you're collecting rewards points, here are some of the local nonprofits that have been programmed into TerraCycle system. I did most of these myself, actually, through my involvement with the Hopewell Harvest Fair. I was just familiar with these, but you can do this yourself if you have a local Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop or your school. You can add them, but it's really easy. It doesn't take long. So I encourage you to do that and raise money for the organizations that you care about. Next slide, please. So at this point, we've covered the paid and the free mail-in programs, but TerraCycle also has free drop-off locations for different waste streams. And you might come across this on some of the program pages as you're looking through our website, but there's a couple that I want to point out. There's a pet food flexible packaging drop-off at Pet Supplies sorry, tongue twister, at Pet Supplies Plus locations in New Jersey and PetSmart locations. So actually all the Pet Supplies Plus locations in the country are participating in this program. The closest ones to us are in Hillsborough and Levittown, and then all the New Jersey, I think it's only New Jersey and Arizona right now for PetSmart. You can drop off your pet food bags at these locations. So that's really great. You know, a lot of people have dogs and cats, and pet food bags are very, very common. And this is great because you can't drop these off in the bag collections at Hopewell Borough. And then another one is that there's also drop-off points at different eye doctor offices for contact lenses and the blister pack packaging that they come in. And personally, I use daily contacts, so I go through a lot of this packaging. So I feel really good. I feel better about having daily contacts, knowing that I can at least recycle the contacts and the packaging. I encourage you to take a look and see, because there are some of these in our area. Next slide, please. We are also piloting these flexible film kiosks at a few locations in New Jersey at ShopRite. So similar to the flexible film collection that Joanne mentioned in Hopewell Borough, these kiosks also collect flexible films that are not accepted in that program. So ones that have like food residue on them or like other types of residue, you can collect them in these bins. Now, I know these locations aren't super close, but we're actually working with ShopRite to scale this program, and I hope that we'll be able to launch some of these in a closer location within the next year or so. But just so you're aware that these sort of things are in the works. Next slide, please. So if you're inspired by these free recycling programs and drop-off points, TerraCycle has a section for communities on their website where you can learn about hosting one-time collection events, organizing community cleanups, starting a public drop-off point, and more. And I'm sure Joanne is familiar with some of this, as I know that the Green Team participates in some of the TerraCycle programs, so she could potentially be a resource for that as well. But if you're inspired, please go ahead and take a look. Next slide, please. And here's an example of a community recycling hub in Cook County, Illinois, where they partnered with TerraCycle. The community used a grant that they received to work with TerraCycle and create a solution for recycling hard to recycle waste in their community. So if a community is motivated, there are a lot of possibilities with TerraCycle. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks, everyone. I hope that's helpful. And I'm always around to answer questions, and I'll be here for questions now.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think we've covered a lot of great information tonight, and we'd like to open it up to see what questions or thoughts or observations you may have. We spent, the first part of today, the first half an hour or so, Joanne, talking about some of the recycling basics and some of the things we need to understand as we recycle at home, some of the things that are allowed and are not allowed. And I thought that was very helpful. Recycling can be complex. And I think Joanne and Michelle explain things in a very clear way, which is helpful. And then we wanted to invite Michelle, as a local company involved with recycling, to present some options where when it doesn't work with our curbside recycling, things that you can do. So you have two perspectives around this. And so I think really I would also encourage you to watch the video. I know we weren't able to play the video, but it was so eye-opening for me. It's just how manual a process, how fast-paced the process, the conveyors move at lightning speed, and how dangerous that job is. And it really brought home to me the relevance of why we need to. I mean, there's many reasons why we need to sort the recycling out for environmental reasons, but just from a human standpoint, it's very powerful. Anyway, we want to move to hear what you think, and what we'd like to do is, how it will work is, we'd like to use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and then we'll unmute you. And if you have a question or an observation or something you'd like to share, would really love to hear from you. If you could introduce yourself and perhaps say where you're from, if you're from Pennington, which street you're in, and then your question, and we will try to answer anything, or we can have a dialogue around that.
Okay.
So GP, is there anybody?
I'm looking at the attendees, Kieran, and so far we don't have any hands raised.
While we're waiting, I want to make an observation about, while Michelle was giving her talk, I remembered one really important thing about TerraCycle is that the reason it works so well is that we separate our waste before we send it to them, so that they know exactly which machine it needs to go into, which the facility it goes to. So you really partner with TerraCycle to make this happen. If all the stuff on their page was all in one big bundle, it would never work.
One thing that stood out to me when you were going through that presentation, Joanne, was around compressing what we put into our recycling containers, bins. I had been one, and my family constantly remind me that I compressed everything down to the tiniest in order to fit the most amount into the recycling bins. But having watched the video, having listened to you, it really is a process that happens at the recycling plant, where they blow these things out and they use magnets. And so doing these types of, getting this knowledge is actually really helpful. Joanne, we hear about wish cycling, right? People putting things in the recycling bin and hoping they're getting it right. What advice would you have, perhaps, about what around that?
If you want to do wish cycling, you're basically giving your trash a really long ride to the landfill. So I think some people used to put stuff in their bins thinking if they see this in the bins, they'll realize there's a need for recycling this material. It doesn't work that way. The bowling balls that they have found in the recycling bins, they're not going to say, oh yeah, we should start recycling bowling balls. So the wish cycling is just counterproductive. If you wish that we could recycle something that's not on any of those pages, let's talk about it and see if we can figure out who can help with it. I think that Mercer County actually stepped up to add number 5, recycling, partly because they were hearing from us. We were advising people to call Just call Dan and tell him you want them to add number fives, and they've heard it enough, and then finally there was a way that fit Michelle's equation, and so now they can do it. So that's important.
Great. Kieran, we have, and Joanne, we have 3 participants with raised hands. We have Colleen Pedersen, Andy Jackson, and Dan Pace. So let's take Colleen first.
Hello?
Hello, Colleen.
Yes.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for this. This has been very informative. I've really enjoyed it. I just had a quick question, and I actually had just read an article about this the other day also. Does Mercer County collect paper that we shred ourselves at home, or no?
No, the guidance is not to put shredded paper in your curbside bin. That ends up getting just flying around and not being recognized as paper.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so then what do you do with it? If you shred it yourself, you can still take it to a shredding day and they'll accept it. And I think that also, I think TerraCycle does TerraCycle have a shredded paper option? I saw another one someplace. If I look at our website, I think there's another way that you can get rid of your shredded paper.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Okay, and then we have Dan Pace.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, let me lower my hand. Okay. Oh, well, it's still up. Well, thank you, Environmental Commission, for this important conversation. But I have a related question regarding the power of the community. Because for many years, I assisted with the twice yearly FOVOS, Friends of Hopewell Valley Open Space, community cleanup, until its sponsor, Hopewell Township, removed FOVOS from the program. Now, as I walk around Pennington, I see a lot of trash that could be picked up during a Pennington Clean Community Day. So my question is, has the Environmental Commission or the Green Team considered sponsoring such a day? Thanks.
Dan, I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm not sure if the Green Team has done it. In my experience, at least in the time that I have lived in Pennington over the last 15 years, I haven't seen it, but it could just be that I was not observing it. I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's one of those things that I think can really involve the community and is an opportunity to reinforce these things. Joanne, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think there probably we should talk about in the Environmental Commission meeting, because I think those tend to be very municipal oriented. So, and the Green Team being 3 municipalities might just confuse things. So.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Andy Jackson.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, very nice. Very good presentations, everybody. I really enjoyed it. I have a question for Joanne. I'm getting a little confused over your term cans, because mostly we look at aluminum cans, but most of us were allowed to put in, as long as they're clean, cans that have contained peas and foodstuffs and things like that. Is that correct? We can use those cans? We can put those cans?
Yes, those kind of, yeah, the food, food cans off your pantry shelf, those are definitely
What we would call
recyclable.
what we would call tin cans. They weren't listed on. I looked at the Mercer County. They talked about aluminum cans, but they didn't put tin cans. But
Yes, yeah.
I've been putting them in there. Yeah.
I see. You're thinking, oh, like an engineer. Because, yeah, there's aluminum cans and tin cans. They're both accepted. Yeah,
Good,
just
okay.
clean them out and don't crush them.
And well, as Kieran said, I'm permanently crushing my cans and milk bottles and things just to save volume, but I won't do that anymore.
Yeah. If you need another bin, call Rick Smith. And
I don't need another bin. No, I could put more bins out. That's okay.
Okay.
And then on Colleen, with regard to shredding, I used to shred a lot of stuff, and now I just collect it in a box and take it either to the shredding that they have. I think they have one down in the center of Trenton every 6 months, and just take the boxes, and they have secure shredding, and they just get rid of everything that way. so you don't have to generate all that volume of shredded paper. So that's an alternative. I still shred some sensitive things, but most of the stuff is not that sensitive that I can't just collect it.
Mercer County, in addition to Mercer County, Hopewell Township has shredding events along with their e-waste.
They do. That was along with the electronics recycling.
Yes.
And then I have a question for TerraCycle. We say within the Mercer County Improvement Authority's program that everything has to be clean, but it looks like some of the things that you're collecting, it's impossible to clean. If they are squeeze tubes, are we supposed to squeeze everything out of there and then put some solvent in and get the rest out? Or does that not really the issue? As long as they are the right package, they don't have to be thoroughly cleaned inside.
Great question. For TerraCycle programs, it's actually built into the recycling equation to have those items shredded and cleaned in the TerraCycle recycling process, so you don't have to worry about thoroughly cleaning the packages.
Okay, and the last question, I finally understand your business model. I could never understand how you were able to make money, but it makes a lot of sense doing it the way you're doing it. My question is, most of us may only have one or two of these products a year, and it seems like we need to have some community collection if we're going to separate them out by product or brand, maybe in the neighborhoods or maybe within Pennington itself. I don't know whether I saw the last slide that you put up with the large I think 6 bay containers available for one place in Illinois. Was that custom designed for them, or is that a program that you're looking to introduce in different communities?
Sure, that was custom designed for them. I have seen a lot of times these public drop-offs are organized by volunteers, and I have seen really beautiful public drop-off stations that accommodate all the different programs and have different bins for all of them. And perhaps I can give some images to Joanne to put on the Green Team website as inspiration. But that specific one was custom to their needs. I think that location was in what they call a recycling desert, where there actually is no curbside recycling. So they needed to accommodate normal, what we would have as curbside recycling, and then also a few other specialized waste streams. But there's a lot of potential to do some sort of a public drop-off point that collects all of them, because I hear you don't want to ship just like one package into TerraCycle. That feels wasteful in itself. But it is better than it going to landfill. So there's that, but it is definitely better to be shipping in many units at a time.
So let's, we're coming up on time now. It's 8:15, and I just want to be respectful about people's time. But I wish we had more time to have more dialogue and more conversation. This will be, of course, posted on our website.
Kieran, we have, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have one more question, if we can manage that one.
Let's try.
Okay. BT on BB tablet.
Hi, this is Kristen Rokes, and I have a question about the Mercer recycling program. I know that, and it's been said for years and years, we should not use plastic bags, but driving around, a lot of the residents put their recycling in plastic bags. I have reached out to Mercer to not necessarily complain, but ask if there's a way that they can just not pick up the bags is a way to discourage residents for doing this. I know, Rick Smith and the team are really good about tagging and saying, I'm sorry, we can't pick this up because it doesn't qualify for your trash. It needs to be in large pickup, or it needs to be this, or it needs to be that. Is there any way that we can, I don't want to penalize people, but just raise more awareness against these plastic bags? Because I don't want to discourage or take away our curbside recycling programs because of the plastic bags, if that makes sense.
Right. And, so actually, just before COVID, Mercer County started an enforcement pilot project, and they had a vehicle going ahead of the recycling truck. And if they saw bins that had stuff that wasn't supposed to be recycled, they check off on the tag what was not And they'd attach it to the bin and the recycling truck wouldn't pick it up and people would feedback. And then COVID. And so they never got quite all the way around the county. Pennington Environmental Commission a number of years ago, probably almost 10 now, had a little program, and maybe Kristen, you'd like to help us start it up again. We designed a little tag that said no plastic bags, no pizza boxes, I think. And we had 2 members of our council who commission who were runners. So on recycling morning, one of them covered half of the borough and the other covered the other half. And if they saw one of these bins, they with the wrong stuff in it, they just attached a little tag. And they probably still got picked up, but the people still got the tag. And we discovered that as time went on, they were using fewer tags on their runs. So it might be time for a little consciousness raising again, but I do want to point out that Mercer County, I forgot to mention this, does have a 91% recycling rate. Of all the stuff that does get delivered to their recycling facility, 91% of it gets recycled. So that's pretty good. Yeah, I like surprisingly good. So thanks for the suggestion, and let me know if you want to help do it again.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay,
So,
that's it, Kieran. No more
you.
questions.
Awesome. Thanks. Great questions, great suggestions for us to think about. So as we wrap it up, if you could move to the very last slide, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our speakers, to Joanne and to Michelle, for really sharing their insights and their expertise with all of us. And I want to recognize a few other people because these kinds of programs take some effort to put together. I think it was very well done. But I'd just like to recognize Jim Fugger, Nancy Fishman, Emily Brogue from the Environmental Commission, and also GP and Betty Sterling from our administration for helping put this together. And most importantly, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here today to learn something. Please encourage people to, once we put this on the website, to go and to listen to it, talk to your friends, to your networks. We would love to slowly start building that into our borough website and information and resources like this as we continue this series throughout 2025. So with that, we'll close for the evening. Have a great night. Happy recycling, everybody. Thank you.